Erickson from Cambridge Innovation Center Venture Cafe. You handle so many of their programs and events and things like that. I'm so thrilled to have you here on the ROIinU Career Success Tips show. And thank you so much for making the time. I'm super pumped to talk about this topic of being a successful student and then hitting a wall or some walls when you enter into the workplace. But first, I like to start with what's a quick tip that you might have for someone who's just getting into the job market or maybe career transitioning they might not know about. Everything changes so quickly. There's always a good different answer that comes out every time I ask this question.
Yes, I'm going to be kind of boring and say optimize and use LinkedIn.
Oh,
Connect
okay.
with people, even if you've only met them a little, tangentially a while ago. Send them real, true, honest messages. And if they work for a company that you're interested in working for, don't be afraid to reach out and say, hey, I'd love to work with you. I'd love to work at XYZ company. Could we just have a quick call? I'd love to just kind of hear what it's like. Remember that culture of a company is the most important factor in deciding whether or not to take a position. And so getting to know people that work there already and hearing what they love about their job or about their company can be a real boost. But it can
Hmm.
also help you kind of secure that interview. If somebody gives you just that warm introduction to the hiring manager, it's a huge, huge help.
Yeah, fantastic. That's a really great tip. Has LinkedIn or how you use LinkedIn evolved at all since COVID?
Absolutely. There are so many people lately that I know almost exclusively through LinkedIn. I do try to, every time somebody messages me or connects with me on LinkedIn, I do try to respond. And I do try to get to meet them either on a Zoom call or, through an email. So we have some kind of connection, but I think there's a lot of people right now looking at LinkedIn as the way to network outside of their current people that they work with every day.
Hmm.
Um, so a lot of networking events have been canceled. A lot of uh, you know, outside engagements are done. They're not happening right now, but LinkedIn is there for all of us.
That's fantastic. Yeah, and there's so many great ways that you can engage. I have a lot of tips. I've given a lot of LinkedIn talks, especially to recent grads and current students on how they can kind of stalk and engage people without being creepy, because there's a trick to it, and it's easier than you think, but it's also easier to fall into a trap than you think.
Absolutely, yeah. But I do encourage anybody that's watching, if you want to connect with me on LinkedIn, I'd love to meet you and see what you're working on and see if I can support you in any way as we
That's
move
so
forward.
awesome. Yeah, and you have such a great network too, and that's another great tip is connecting with someone like Amy or myself will then give you access to our networks so that you can, tap in. It's going to render so many more results when you're searching on LinkedIn and create a possibility to connect with people. I have about 6,000, I'm almost close to 6,000 contacts on LinkedIn. So yeah.
I'm not quite there yet, but I'm over 1,000. I don't know exactly where, but yes, definitely connect with us. And the other piece too to connecting on LinkedIn is make sure that you have an up-to-date picture. Like all of these things I'm sure
Mm.
are in Suzanne's talks, but like really make it you. I love that you can now put your pronouns in. You can make yourself very like open and available as you need to be. So please
Yeah. And
be
the open to work
yes.
tag and what you're receptive about. Also, I've seen that you can do a quick video instead of just a simple headshot, so that could be fun too.
Yeah. Yeah, I haven't explored that yet, but maybe someday soon.
I know. Yeah, something to do. Something else to do, right? I mean, that's the challenge, right? Is all these different things. But tell
Exactly.
us a little bit about your background, Amy, and your job and what you're doing right now at Venture Cafe, and we talked about this a little bit about sort of the Cambridge Innovation Center ecosystem. But can you tell me a little bit about Cambridge Innovation Center? I know it from early days, but just so that everyone else gets a sense of where you're coming from.
Yeah. So this is the tricky part. So Cambridge Innovation Center and Venture Cafe came to Providence at the same time.
Mhm.
I actually don't work for Cambridge Innovation Center. I work for a nonprofit called Innovation Studio.
Hmm.
And we were very closely partnered with Cambridge Innovation Center with CIC Providence for a long time, running the Venture Cafe program. CIC actually paid us to run the Venture Cafe program out of District Hall there at CIC 225 Dyer. And that ended at the end of September. But they are going to renew that Venture Cafe program. That will come back at some point in the near future. They are currently hiring for a team. So if anybody's out there looking, you can find job positions for Venture Cafe Providence, in addition to Venture Cafe Cambridge, actually, if you're thinking about Boston area. Um,
And venture cafes all over the world, right?
there are venture cafes all over the world. They're opening a new one in Monterrey, Mexico.
Oh, that sounds
So
good.
yeah, there I think now 9 cities around the world. So fantastic opportunities to kind of engage with your colleagues then would be around the world. So you can engage with colleagues in Tokyo and Sydney and Rotterdam, Warsaw, soon to be Mexico, and really kind of be part of that global network. Um, right now, Innovation Studio is in strategic planning mode. We are really re-engaging and thinking about our why. Who do we serve and why do we serve them the way we do? And so our focus is on, and has been for a long time, helping people, anyone with an idea, to create the business that they want. So, if you want to own your own business, if you are entrepreneurial, if you want to be um, the best restaurant in Providence, or the best salon in
Warsaw.
Newport,
Yeah.
Warsaw, we can help you get there. A lot of what I fully believe in is that it's not really fair to say my network is my net worth, because that's based on who you know personally. And so I say my network is your net worth. If you need connections to somebody or some program or some um, client base, or you just need to talk through an idea, that's what I'm here for. And that's what I do every day. Um, I exist. My reason for doing my current role is because it gives me the opportunity to meet new people all the time, to help them engage in deep conversations about their dreams, their ideas, their goals for their life, and then to help them connect with the resources they need to grow, whether that's a person or a financial institution, or the right market. Um, that's where we sit as an organization, and that's what I do as an individual within that organization. Oh, you're muted, Suzanne. I can't hear you.
Sorry, forgot I was on mute. I know a lot of recent grads and emerging professionals are interested in starting their own businesses. I'm just curious, in a percentage wise, like how quickly would you recommend that they do that as opposed to getting a job initially?
So when I graduated from college many years ago, there was not the Affordable Care Act. And so my mother, who is a very intelligent woman, said, "You have to get a job right away because your health insurance is going to expire and we can't cover you anymore."
Hmm.
Now, from what I understand, most young people are covered until they're 26.
Hmm.
So if you have that great idea, if you're ready, I'm like ready mentally, like you feel like I want to take this on. And if you have a way to live for the night. So if you're, working at a Starbucks, or you're making sandwiches at Subway, like,
Yeah.
that job that can just kind of sustain you personally, so that you can afford to pay your rent, you can maybe have fun with your friends when needed, you can eat, all good things. Um, go for it. Connect with people who are in the industry that you're interested in, and engage with them. Now, if you're more on the conservative side, like I am, and you're terrified to lose health insurance, there are plenty of great organizations that can help you be entrepreneurial without being an entrepreneur. So you can
Hmm.
engage in self directed projects, you can learn and grow within your organization, but get those benefits. So for me, I'm the first person to cheer on everyone that's so brave and ready to start their own business, and I'm also then saying, "Go you!"
Yeah. I'll cash my paycheck. Thank you.
But someday I hope that in the next 10 years or so I can feel that bravery too. I commend everybody that's like, I'm ready to start. I want to do this right, and I'm going to do it now because it's now or never.
Hmm. I think that's great advice. And one theme that's come up I've done about 50 of these interviews. One theme that's come up often is that there's windows of opportunity, let's say, that when you're bringing up a new one, that hey, when you can get health insurance on your own without needing an employer up until age 26, that's a great opportunity, great window. And I would say probably not to start a whole idea out from scratch right when you graduate, to have thought about it earlier on, or to maybe join a startup, maybe have one or two partners where you are a key person in contributing to that organization. You don't need to, it doesn't need to be your idea to get on that roller coaster ride.
Yes, exactly. Especially if you are in, I don't know very much about schools outside of the East Coast, but many, many East Coast schools right now have entrepreneurship
Hmm.
programs. Some of them are certificate programs or minors. I believe some of them you can major in entrepreneurship, but you can always, always take some of those courses and meet people that are
Yeah.
thinking about their own ideas. Because for many of the founders that I work with that are very young, under 25, under 26 age range, a lot of them started as class projects or they started
Hmm.
as um, ideas that maybe one member of their founding team had, that they convinced all the rest of the team members like this is an issue, this is how we can solve it, and then they went through kind of an entrepreneurship accelerator within their university or college, which was wildly helpful. There are also high school programs now. I mean, we're living in 2021. You can almost start a career right out of high school. There are fantastic, successful students who have done so, um, and who then kind of work at that part time while they're going to college or while they're going to university or maybe doing other things, but really get that job up and running or that business up and running while learning, um, and embracing their relative free time of being a young adult.
Yes, relative free time, right? And that was another thing too, is that you have young kids, so I'm sure that that's takes up a big part of your focus. And once they get older, then you can launch your own on your own
Yes,
as an
yeah.
entrepreneur.
Once I get that brave,
You
but I
can
do
take
know people that they have a baby and they're like, okay, now's the time. I'm going to start a career, and they want to build their own schedules. They want to
Mhm.
work with the clients they want to work with, and that gives them that opportunity to do so. So
Yeah. Oh, definitely. I mean, there's so many different paths. I
yeah.
think this when you decide that you are going to become an entrepreneur, you can test out your own advice.
Mhm. Yeah, and I'll probably find it's all bad, but it's okay.
No, you have lots of great advice to give, particularly. So I love this idea of, because I would say that I fell into this category too. I was a really good student. I wasn't the top student. I was not valedictorian, but I was good at going to school. And I was actually good at going to school, and I ran the student newspaper. So I had 40 unpaid staff, and we put out a weekly newspaper, which was pretty good considering that there was only about 3,000 students at the college, now university. But I'm just curious to hear what advice you're giving recent grads and emerging professionals who maybe are struggling after having been a successful student. There's that feedback loop, right? As a student that I think you don't get necessarily in the workplace.
Absolutely. I am an amazing student. It took me a long time to admit that without feeling ashamed, but I am a great test taker. I am, to be fair, tests are written for, people from a middle class background who are generally speaking white. But I excelled at taking tests, at going to school. Um, I went through grad school. It was fantastic. I loved it. I loved every moment of what I was doing. Then I got a job. And I had a couple of really pretty good successes in my life, but I tried to be the director. to be kind of that career person in charge, to have a team under me. And I tried it twice in a row, and from both jobs, I was fired. Um, and it hurt. um, it was in some ways it was devastating. I had two jobs that I loved. I had teams under me that I loved. I had responsibilities and events that I was planning, and just really fantastic opportunities to share the beauty of the work that my organizations were doing. And I loved it. I loved every minute of it. Um, but you know what? I'm okay. I failed, and I got up.
Hmm.
I applied for the next job. I failed again. I got up, and I found that I'm not uh, devastated anymore,
Hmm.
because I found that the right position for me. And a lot of that comes down to two things. It comes down to company culture, which, as I
Hmm.
said before, I think I said, but is the most important aspect when you're looking for a job. If the culture is the right fit, even if you are, um, 100% unsure if you can do the job, you will be able to do the job because the culture will be there to support you. The people and
Hmm.
the organization will be behind you. Um,
That's such a great
so
point that,
it took so long, but I found it, for me.
yeah, but it's not just it's not just you, and we've talked about this before. And in two shows ago, we had one of my more recent interns who actually quit. I don't think she was on a path to get fired, but she quit because it was just going very negatively. And she had been there, a few months and realized the culture is not good. And fortunately, she had lined up another opportunity that she got just because she's skilled at digital marketing. And she was actually posting on Instagram just herself as a person, as a customer for a brand that she really loves. And they approached her and said, "Hey, we want to hire someone to manage our marketing. Are you interested?" So she landed that job. I can't wait to have another follow-up call with her to see how things are going, because she was so excited about the opportunity because she loves the brand and she has all these skills that she can bring that she honed. I mean, she basically helped get all of the Newport Interactive marketing events, all that marketing done. The NIM interns have stacks portfolio pieces, as you know how much work goes into doing an event. But also, then getting back to your point about having been a good student, my longest serving intern, Maya, we spoke last week, and she decided she's also an excellent student and decided to keep on, and she's in grad school. So she was giving us this update and is really looking forward to her, career search and launching her career. And I don't think that you know, I think that cultural fit is really important and it saves a lot of agony. And Maya talked about in that episode, she talked a lot about her system for like how she's going to identify culture and really take a quantitative approach to it so that she is focusing on the right companies, which I thought was a really interesting way to approach it. Then we spun it into a little research project that hopefully she can get one of her professors to back her on. But cultural fit, I think, is just so huge, and it's so interesting how this has become the theme of the month.
Yeah, well, we're all, it's the end of the year. We're all looking back at what we've done this year, and I think the reasons why we stayed with our current companies, and for most of us, it is culture. It's the intangible thing. I would love to see her research though, and how she's going to quantify culture, because
Huh?
I have not figured that out yet, and would love to kind of dive into that some.
I'll have to connect you guys when she puts it together. We just brainstormed it after the call
Yeah,
because she talked about, oh, I'm gonna, I have 50 companies, have to figure it out. And I said, oh, it would be interesting if you could turn that into a project and save herself a ton of time.
right.
Um,
Oh
yeah,
yeah,
so be two phases, but I don't want to give away too much because I don't want to. It's a good idea, if I say
yeah.
so
No,
myself.
brilliant idea.
So, what are some other, sort of pitfalls that you find, and trouble spots to keep, maybe how to overcome this? I was a really great student, and now I'm maybe struggling in the workplace.
Yeah. I found that when I was first going out for career type positions, and I graduated with my undergrad. I did 2 years of AmeriCorps, and then a year of comparative service. So it was a full time job. I got a salary, but I was running a mentoring program for children of prisoners.
Wow,
And
cool.
so then after those 3 years of break, I went back to grad school and I got my master's degree in history, thinking that I was what does Ken Robinson say? I was the quintessential brain, like my body existed just to carry my head around, because I wanted to be a university professor who existed to create more university professors. Um, I didn't. I after 2 years of grad school, I was like, you know what, I'm done. I want to have
Yeah.
a family. I want to have a career. I want to make money instead of continuing to add to my student loans. And so I started working. I had my first professional job. I had fantastic mentors. It was a wonderful position, but and it was a wonderful culture. It was a great company. I stayed there for 3 years, but I was so focused all the time on my job title. And I never found satisfaction in what I was learning because
Mm-hmm.
I was always like, but I want to be a manager or I want to be a director. Um, and from there, I dove right into a director role. I became the development director for a very small organization. Had a couple of successful events and then was fired. um,
Mm-hmm.
and a lot of that was the culture. I was not being supported in the way I wanted to be, and kept pointing it out, and it became an issue, a long-standing issue. And so um, I, was fired. I left that position. I went to work for a different organization, mission-based nonprofit with a mission that I loved, still love, an organization that I still love, and had a very similar experience where I was putting out what I thought was great work, but was not getting what I thought I needed. And because I thought I needed, XYZ, and the organization felt like I should be able to provide for myself or
Mm-hmm.
take care of, handle XYZ, I was ultimately let go from that position as well.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and that was devastating. From there, I I had to continue to look for work, but I took some time, and I just picked up what I thought was just like a quick contractor role, a couple of months, plan a few prep events for Venture Cafe as it starts to come down to Rhode Island, just manage the budget and make sure that the vendors are all at the right place, line up a few speakers.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and it was the right fit. I
That's
fell into
awesome.
the right fit. I don't have any business experience. I don't have an entrepreneurial experience, but what I do is I love to listen to people talk and share their story. And for the last 3 years now, I've been in the position where I get to listen to incredibly intelligent people, incredibly passionate people share what they're working on, and I
I
love it.
love it. Yeah. Is now a good time to tell you that that the dog might bark? No, she's like picked her head up. No, it's to tell you a friend who works in development told me that the average tenure in the development department is, I think, 18 months. So that I think is not it's not unusual, that experience that you had, and yeah, it's a turn and burn industry,
Yeah,
and nonprofits in general are very challenging. It's interesting. There's a TED talk that's old that talks about why are we asking people to take pay cuts to work for nonprofits? We need the best minds working to solve our biggest problems, and I don't know. It's just interesting. It's like you're supposed to feed yourself on the mission, and I don't.
right.
I mean, I also am very involved with the nonprofit that I started, so I see both sides, and I see that that's not really a fair thing to ask, but also that the organization has specific goals that need to be met. And yeah, it's interesting. I think nonprofits present a lot of great opportunities, especially for emerging professionals. But I would also say that the culture there is really important because it's going to change, because the board will change out, and the board and the executive director are like, that's all very shifting as opposed to working for a larger organization that has more things that are more established, and big ships turn slower, basically. So I think that it's really good to talk about this, because I don't think that these conversations necessarily happen. They may be on like a professional development night, or if they're speakers. One of my professors who taught all the journalism classes was really great about bringing in speakers, and we had all the top journalists in Boston come in and talk about what was going on and what to expect and all that kind of stuff. And now he's been there long enough that he brings in a lot of alumni, and a lot of recent alumni, so that you have a good sense of where you're at when you're graduating, and you don't walk into something and say like, oh, I didn't realize that I was going to have to work 4 a.m. to noon or midnight to 8. Which happens, in journalism. It's a 24-hour news cycle. You got to love it in order to work those shifts. But there are
Right.
other opportunities too. You can work for a magazine, you can work for a weekly, but just to understand what's really out there. And these are such great insights. I really, really appreciate it.
Yeah, I mean, I would never, I cannot, say, oh, don't go work for nonprofits. Like it's, but I do like fully recommend if that's the role you want, and especially if you want to be in a position like branding, design, marketing, PR for a nonprofit, make sure that it's a mission and a culture that feeds you,
Hmm.
because unfortunately the pay scale is low, the hours are long, and at the end of the day, if you're the public face of an organization, or you're like a really uh, key member in building that brand, there are going to be people that feel like it's it it's something that they can tear down. Um,
Hmm.
my sister is the marketing director for a nonprofit, and she actively works less than full time, um,
Hmm.
in part because she wants to pursue other opportunities,
Hmm.
for her family, and but also because it hurts, um,
Hmm.
sometimes.
Yeah.
So do it because you love it and not because you want to be rich. um,
Yeah, that's that. No, and that's a really good point. And a lot of times what's come up in these conversations is, if you're looking to build out your portfolio, that doing a project for a nonprofit can be a great way to do that. Um, one way, right, with ROINU is designed to be a digital marketing career launcher. So I've done this with all my college classes, that I pair students up in cohorts with organizations, most often nonprofits or startups, to unpack, right, and to come up with a strategy that a lot of these organizations do not have time to do.
no,
And it's students are doing really, really great work for these organizations that they just don't have the time to do it. They're so busy with operations. But then
right.
the other piece is that the students, all working as a cohort, have the opportunity to not only learn but apply skills. And this is something that came up in last week's show. Was, it's great to do all these Google certifications, but are you really learning it, or are you just ticking the boxes? So we try to match that cutting edge knowledge, working with experts, working with real brands, walking out with portfolio pieces. Because then when you go to the interviews that we match you up with, you have things you could talk about. You don't have to answer weird questions like, what's your favorite color? Because they want to sit down and see the work that you've done, and you can talk about that work and what are some of the challenges, and what the results were, which is what any interviewer really wants to know, is how did you make an impact?
Yeah, and nonprofits are so grateful that for that kind of support, because most nonprofit leaders recognize that they want to market, they want to share their story, um, but as you said, they either don't have the time themselves, or they don't have the resources to hire out somebody to do it for them. And a lot of them want to, they want to hire somebody to be
Yeah.
their full-time marketing person. They want to pay that person a fair wage. They want to give them everything they need to grow and learn in their career. But the way that the world views nonprofits is very backwards right now, and it's something that I hope is changing. As
Hmm.
somebody who's worked in a nonprofit my entire adult life.
There we go. Well, and this is more really great insights. Is there another quick tip as we wrap up that you would want to give on, for the successful student, or what would you tell your younger self in, starting out from a successful school career and then into the workforce?
So somebody told me once to be human to humans. And I put this as one of my tips for the thing, but I just need to reiterate it. Every person in this world is enough. They are enough to change the world and to be amazing. And um, so you need to internalize this and remember that you are enough. You can change the world just as you are. You have all the skills and the resources and the assets that we need as a world, but so is every person that you meet. So just remember, you might be having a hard day, they might be having a hard day, but just be human, um, because you never know.
I love it. Amy, thank you so much. This was fantastic. And we'll look forward to seeing you at a Venture Cafe event soon.
Definitely, we'll be around Rhode Island for sure.
Awesome. And online virtually too, yeah?
Yes. Oh, yes. Actually, our goal is to host events around the state now, not just in Providence, but also to then try to keep a virtual presence for our live events, and then
Hmm.
also have fully virtual events where it makes more sense, depending on context and topics.
Love it. Love it. Okay. Well, we'll see you soon. Thank you.
Thank you.